guys, what's going on? Bobby here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the ATA Network podcast. Today, I have a very, very special episode. So when I was thinking about the return of the podcast, and I'm doing all this pre-planning and stuff, and, I've got my list of drivers or people in the racing industry that I want to talk to, and there was one guy that wasn't necessarily on my list because, I don't send this guy a Christmas card, right? He's not a BFF. He's not one of the top numbers in my phone. But to be able to sit down with this guy and have a conversation with, it became really quickly one of my favorite podcast guest ideas ever. And fortunately, I asked him if he wanted to come on, and he was quick to say yes, and he thought it was a great idea. And I'm really super excited to bring this guy on. And we're gonna clear the air a little bit. We got some beef, if you will. And so we're gonna break out those boxing gloves. We're gonna go to town. No, we're not gonna do that. But really excited to have this guy on. I mean, in my mind, one of the best karters in the country, right? I mean, you look at some of the big events, whether it be like CKN or CKNA or WKA, like this guy, he's fast, right? He's a pretty quick driver in my book. And like I told him before I started recording here, like if I had Indy cars lined up to put drivers in, I would definitely be putting him in a car because he's been in karting for way too long. He's got to get out of it. We need to put him in a formula car or a sports car or something. We need to get him out there on the track on the big cars because it's his time. He's a really talented driver, 2-time now Ignite Challenge champion. But unfortunately, one of those times being a champion basically kicked me out of that spot and put me down to that dumb, stupid little second place trophy. But without further ado, one of my karting rivals, if you will, Mr. Alexander Searle. Welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, dude. And like I said, me and you, we're not best of friends, right? I don't even know if I would. Hopefully, by the end of the show, we can be friends. How about that? Is that a good goal to shoot for? Maybe
it's a great goal to shoot for.
So, Alexander, like I said, I think you're a really awesome driver. How did a guy like you get started? What sparked your interest in racing, and how did you initially make that step into racing?
Yeah, for sure. My spark for racing started when I was like 4 years old. I was at Homestead just for like a Ferrari event that was going on. I was there with my dad, and I remember we were just watching at the grandstands, and here come these V12 F1 cars, and my dad was like, "Oh, he's 4. He's just a loud noise, and he's so scared." He's getting ready to, grab me and kind of like get away from the noise. And there I am, just mouth wide open, just in awe of these just incredible race cars. And so actually my dad had a camera around his neck, and he just snatched like a random picture. And I actually have the picture of like kind of like the moment that I fell in love with racing.
Wow.
And so from there, every year I'd be like, when can I have a go-kart? When can I have a go-kart? Because, we have the Florida Winter Tour and the SKUSA Winter Series that always go on. And we go to those races and watch. And I wanted to be a karting driver. And so every year, can I get a go-kart? Can I get a go-kart? My dad's like, oh, next year. It got to the point where I fell in love with the sport so much. My dad built me this simulator. We had like the PlayStation 2. And this like before simulators were like really a thing.
Yeah.
We used like a little booster car seat, and out of plywood, we put together a simulator with some old TV. And here I am on like NASCAR and, the old games like Colin McRae Rally. And I'm doing pretty good, with my plastic, wheel and just stuff that really didn't have any feedback is just there to drive. Nothing wrong with that. But like, this is 2009. And every year I'd be like, can I get a go-kart? He's like, well, when you can win a race or when you can, complete a lap without crashing on the simulator. And so I'd be like, I did it. And then finally he's like, when you're 7 years old. So here I am. They're like, oh, he's going to forget. 7th birthday comes around. I'm like, where's the go-kart? And so they're like, oh, he remembered. And one day I get picked up from school, and we don't go the normal way home. And we go to this karting track, and there's a kart there getting put together. And by then I connected the dots, like, oh, this is mine. And so I was doing my homework, getting in and out of the seat, doing a seating fit. And I got this little micro kart, old Tony car, old motor. We'd go to the track twice a week, and I'd drive. We didn't have the funds to race, but I drove. So for about like 2 to 3 years, I just went to the same track in Miami and just did laps. Didn't have the funds for tires. We would go to the Winter Tour race, and these top teams throw away these old tires, which for us are brand new tires. and we'd come home with 20 sets of tires in the trunk, and that's kind of how I got started. But funding really ran short, and we stopped doing the outdoor stuff. And when I was about 10, 11, I transitioned to indoor karting and just did that for like 3 years straight, lap records, and pretty much won everything I did in indoor karting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of all it was until somehow, after like 5 years of my mom working at this company she works for, the owner of the company was a world champion karting driver. But we didn't know that until my mom mentioned one day that I was going to this like race to watch, and all. He's like, "Wait, your son races?" And so all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. The owner of the company's brother was at Jacksonville for the AKRA Grand Nationals, and he's like, "Why don't we just see what he can do?" And so all of a sudden, we drive up to Jacksonville, and I'm in my first ever actual karting race, and I have no idea what I'm doing. All I know is how to do laps. I don't know how to pass. I don't know any of the ins and outs of the technicality of racing. And so I'm with MGM, and I'm pretty quick, qualify, I think like fourth, and lap one comes around, turn 4, and I'm upside down in the fence.
What was that like? I mean, it's crazy. Like, I gotta stop you for a second, because like the thing is like you see a guy like yourself, especially like now. Like I think of, for example, last year, you're at all the Ignite majors, you're at all the Ignite challenges, and if we got a guy here that's running the rentals at Gateway and the iDrive Championship, and you see a guy like that, you think he's got all these means, all these funds, to go out here and do this, and to hear your story of like it took you years and years and years of, and I consider it hard work in my opinion, like even just you as a kid on the simulator, like you display how much passion you have to go racing, right? And you have all these years of building up, and you can't even race yet. You're just out here in this old kart on old tires, just going around driving. I mean, that's incredible. And so you have all this time, right? And you get up into this first race, and you're upside down on the fence. How do you feel about that? Like, is this like, oh my God, my dreams are crushed, or how do you what goes through your mind?
Well, to be honest, I don't actually. When I was upside down, I didn't know what happened. I really was like, what on earth was happening? My visor, because I had like one of those motorcycle helmets,
Mm-hmm.
and so the visors easily pop off, and so my visor flew off somewhere, and so I had sand all in my eyes, and my leg was wrapped around the steering wheel. I was like, how did this happen? And then I kind of connected the dots. I'm upside down. My head is about to touch the ground, and I'm hanging on this fence. And so they're flipping me up, and I was first trying to see like, did I break something? Nothing's broken. I was really sore, and basically my mom, who doesn't really go to the races anymore because of that reason, she was the first one to get to me. Somehow she, jumped through this fence and got to me first. And we sat down in the RV, and basically they were like, "What do you think? We can go home right now." And because they thought I'd be frightened and I was scared. And I was like, "No, I want to race. I want to race. If they can get the cart ready, I want to race." And to be fair, I mean, in my head, I was scared. I was scared.
Yeah, for sure.
At that point. That next race, I was so tentative. If they were on the inside of me, you know what, go right along. And I kind of just sailed through that day, kind of just drove, and I came away with a podium, which was great. It was a small race, but came away with a podium. And then the following day, I kind of got my act together and kind of built up the courage, kind of go racing again, and it went well. I mean, it went well. The team liked what they saw in me. The owner of the company that my mom worked for liked what he saw in me. His name's Gary Barron, and he decided to start helping me go racing some more. And so I, worked together with MGM for what it was 2.5 years after that. We went to some SCUSA races, podium there, won some Rock Up events. I would say maybe one of the biggest wins that I've had in my career actually came in the first year of racing, was the CKNA Grand Nationals. I was able to win that race.
That's a big event.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, that weekend actually started off not so well. We didn't practice well, didn't qualify well, but we kind of, the story of my racing career, we just persevered through it, drove through the field. And I think I led like a total of 4 laps. I think I led like the first 2 laps of the final, and then I led the last half lap of the race. But we were able to win the race with some quality drivers who now are gone on and done some sports car stuff. At the end of by middle of 2019, done a bunch of stuff in MGM at that point, and I attended the Rock Island race with Margay. This was an arrive and drive thing, last minute decision to go, and that kind of introduced me to fantastic environment that Margay is. And I remember after that race, I was kind of talking to my parents about it. I'm like, this is it's like family under this tent. It's a family. No matter if it's just a ride or drive, they treat you all the same, you know. And from there, I wanted to work with them some more, and I did the SCUSA race, which you were actually at, and there was also some Indy guys and Evan and Jed Perkins, guys like that were there, and I was able to lead half the feature race until kind of a little incident happened. But from there, I got connected with Margay some more, and I was like, hey, I want to run this series. This challenge series looks really fun. I love the idea of the spec series. I think it really brings the driver into context more.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, that's how I got started with Margay.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I mean, the big thing is, I mean, you're doing all these open chassis races. I mean, that's kind of all the stuff that you did before you came in with Margay, was all this open 206. So it's, other chassis against other chassis. The competition level is a lot more. I mean, you've got more options on, maybe this chassis is better at this track than this one. And so to be able to, like, for example, like you said, like winning the Grand Nationals, for those that don't know, I mean, that's a big deal. And you get, put on this podium, and there's a lot of eyes on you. And to be able to prove yourself at that level is extreme. And it's crazy to think that, like, there's a lot of guys that go and run the open stuff, and then they they run Ignite, and then they want more, and then they go run the open stuff. So for you to go from open and then come to Ignite and have been here for so long, that just kind of shows the testament of, like, how much you're enjoying it, how much you feel like you're being challenged. And I think that's really cool. So you just kind of mentioned briefly, but kind of just more in detail, like, how do you view this Ignite program, and what makes it just so unique and so special compared to what you could do in the open chassis races?
I think the program's fantastic. That's why I keep coming back to it every year. I like the idea of a spec chassis. There's not much adjustment that you need to be made. I mean, I run a baseline. That's I run the same setup in every track I go to. I think the Hoosier R80s are great tires because of the fact that there's not a lot of grip, and I think it really, again, puts more emphasis on how good of a driver you are. Mm-hmm. I like the major events that we go to; they're phenomenal. But the challenge series, it's great. I mean, there's no engine builders, all right. So there's no advantage on engine. There's no advantage on who's got a narrow chassis and who's got the perfect setup for the perfect weather, and who's got more experience here and there on this track, and who knows how to set up a car, who's got the softer chassis. No, it's all about how fast can you go. And after running the open stuff for 2.5 years and seeing the ups and downs of it, I've won races because I had the better setup, and I've lost races because I've been motored by, because he has more horsepower in his motor, because the engine is just better. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's frustrating to lose a race on something that you couldn't help. So I think the Margay program really, it puts emphasis on the driver. But not only that, I think it's a family. I mean, every race that I go to, everyone's friends. Everyone's friends, and they want to race. You race hard on track. You come off the track, and you can talk and have a great time. And yeah, I mean, it's a phenomenal program.
Yeah, I mean, when you were like racing in the CKNA Grand Nationals, for example, go back to that. I mean, you're not doing that with your competitors. You're not talking them in between the races and doing all that stuff. I mean, you see like the kids that run like Ignite Junior or Ignite Rookie, and they're like playing catch in between sessions or riding around on their scooters together. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful atmosphere. And then the other thing too is just the affordability aspect of it. I mean, you talk about your start and just, I mean, how expensive it is, just for anybody to come out and drive. And then you have to think, oh, now I got to go pick out a chassis, and I need to pick out a motor. Wait, you need to go spend a couple $1,000s to get that motor built, so that way you'll be in the top 10, maybe, and the beautiful thing about the Margay program is you go and you spend the $4,500 or the $5,000, whatever it is, and you've got this chassis, you've got the motor, you've got the tires, you got everything you need to go out there and be competitive. I mean, you can throw you in the cart, you can throw me in the cart, you can throw Stommer, you can throw Sweeney in that cart that they just bought, and they can go out there and win a race. And to have that kind of affordability and that spec program, it's just such a great thing. So, I think it's time to transition. So you've got your first taste of what it was like to kart race. You go through all this stuff. You start getting the chance to race at these national events. You get on the podium. You have all this success. you get to Rock Island, you have this amazing experience with Margay, and so now you're pretty much dedicated to running Margay. So 2020 comes around, and at this time for me, this is my third year basically running an Ignite at Gateway Carplex, and I got the opportunity to run in the Challenge Series. And so I've told my story prior on this podcast, but went to my first ever challenge in Whiteland, which you weren't at. You hadn't been kind of signed on to this whole Ignite Challenge idea at that point. And so you weren't there. I went on to the Whiteland and ended up winning the race and getting second in second place. And I'm leaving Whiteland and I'm like, my God, like I've never done an away race really from Gateway. I've done some, maybe a major here or there, but I've never, went to a race and just won at my first time on a track. It was such a crazy experience. I'm leaving there and I'm like, wow, I'm leading the points in Ignite Challenge right now. And so that gave me such a confidence, and it was just so cool. And then you ended up kind of joining in with the Ignite Challenge. So, if you want to kind of talk us through what that 2020 season looked like for you, I mean, you came out into the Central Illinois doubleheader, if you will, going to Midstate Kart Club in Springfield and then onto TNT Kartways. You ended up kind of showing up to the scene in Ignite Challenge and doing pretty good. Talk about how you got started running a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of finished my 2.5 year tenure with MGM, after we did the Rock Cup stuff and the Scusa stuff, and great team. And we go over to the Brickyard, and I'm with Margay. It's my first race with Margay as kind of doing the 206 stuff with them. We did the Brava stuff, and then I did the Ignite race. And we showed great pace. I mean, we went from 48th in the pre-final because we got taken out in the heat. And with 2 to go in the final, we're third place in the Brickyard. And I'm like, oh, wow, it's a good chassis. Mm-hmm. And really, in the Ignite race as well, we had a chance to win that race. The draft was just never right there for me. But we're about to leave, and I get talking with some people, and it was like, oh, yeah, we got a race next week at the Ignite Challenge. And I had no idea I really didn't know what the Ignite Challenge was, to be honest. And all of a sudden, here I am the next week. I told my dad, I'm like, I want to do this. I want to just go. Let's just go. Why not? And so we literally drove home from Indy because we didn't have a flight home. We drove home to Indy, flew back the following week to the doubleheader Mid-State TNT race, and was able to put on the pole in both races. And from there, I'm like, oh, I could put up a fight in this series, I think.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to sign up for something when you're come out and you're really good at it. And you've already had the success at the national level, so of course you start racing these regional races. You're kind of mentally expected to do that well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I don't like going into any weekend, with thinking, oh, obviously you have to tell yourself, oh, I'm going to do great, but I like going into open-minded, I don't know the level of competition, which it's a lot, but to show up and put on the pole, I'm like, it's a confidence booster to say that I can maybe put up a fight in this series. So for sure, after putting on the pole twice and podiums in both races, I didn't know how the points stood. But I knew that maybe if I kept on showing up to the races, I knew the first weekend for me at Whiteland would be dropped. So I couldn't afford to miss any more races. But if I just was consistent, I felt like I had a chance at winning it. And so that's why I kept on showing up.
And while you were thinking about the Whiteland being a drop, I had totally forgot about drops. And so I'm sitting here pretty and leading the points. And then that's about when we got to Gateway, which we'll get there. I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit. Once we got to Gateway, that's when I'm like, oh yeah, drops. Forgot about that. So this is tighter than I thought. So yeah, you did really well in your first ever round in the Ignite Challenge, and you're starting to kind of show your pace, and you're getting up there in the points. And then we get to Autobahn, and I think this is kind of where, me and you have our story at Autobahn, and it's amazing because, well, first off, you were so good in this Central Illinois doubleheader, and I really struggled. I had a lot of problems with my cart. I was mid-pack, and it didn't feel right, and I went home and found all these problems with the cart. And I'm like, dang, I just ruined basically 2 weekends of the Ignite Challenge, 2 rounds of the Ignite Challenge by just not being prepared, just lack of preparation. So it was very frustrating. And so you were in the front of the field. I was kind of mid to backpack, and we didn't ever really race each other that much during the Central Illinois doubleheader. And then we get to Autobahn, and Alexander, your point of view from this, and I think this is maybe why people would click on this and listen if they've seen the previous videos and see your name and just know you from that alone. That's why they're listening. They want to hear your end of the deal from Autobahn. But I've had the vlog, I've had my review video of like my card analysis of going over the incidents and everything. So go ahead and talk us through Autobahn. What was it like going through in that weekend? You were fast that weekend. We had some pretty stiff competition too. I mean, you've got Mick Gabriel and Spike Kolbecker and Jordan Missig, a local at the track. So talk us through what that weekend was looking like, and then obviously all of our wonderful incidences that happened in that weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it was, like you said, I was quick. I wasn't by any means the quickest guy at all weekend. I remember I struggled with understeer and just couldn't get the cart to turn, but qualified pretty well, like you said, Mick Gabriel, local, Spike, Evan, Jordan Missig, a bunch of people. And race starts, and I mean, we're like a 6-7 cart train for the first few laps of that race, and I was able to get to, I think, second, or I think I got to the lead at one point in that race. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden Spike went around me, then Mick went around me, and my goal was to just sit there in third. I wasn't let them just battle out. I was gonna sit there in third. And I remember from there, I think you went for a slight move on me, and then kind of just went wide, and then Trevor got in the mix. We're 3 wide, and we lost probably 3 seconds in that one lap racing, which is fine. I don't mind racing because I'm never the biggest fan of racing for like a position like that early on in the race. And from there, I was like, okay, well, the race is over because Mick and Spike are going to push the whole next to 12 laps, whatever it was. So the race was over for the win. I was like, we're going to race for third. Obviously, you have your analysis in the video, and I've watched it, and it's like, I agree with what you were saying, but yeah, I mean, obviously we had a few moments. I mean, what I actually didn't notice at the time, to be fair, is when Trevor got taken out, it was by quote you, but little do we know it was 3 wide, just kind of a racing thing that just happened. You got pushed up into Trevor and you got taken out. And I was a little frustrated with the whole thing that went on the few laps before, going 3 wide up the hill and on the hill.
Yeah.
And great racing, but just not smart racing. I was like, okay, next lap, I'm going to get a run here, and I'm going to kind of just send it into turn 1. Not in a dirty way, but I was like, I'm going to send it because I'm a little frustrated, to be honest. And that was the first time I think that I've been like really frustrated at a race. And so I went down the inside, and this is kind of where our whole thing started. And I actually, I had the corner that from your footage, and I think you even said it in the video, it wasn't the worst move to make if we're at like a national event, not such a maybe a regional event. But I had the inside, and that's why I never got a penalty for that move, is because I had the corner. But I think what I maybe could have done a little differently is maybe given you some more room. To be fair, I actually didn't plan on pushing you off. I planned on putting you on. I planned on putting you onto the curb, but the curb is not as long as I thought it was.
Yeah, I was on that whole curb. I was no longer on a racetrack. I was on that whole
no longer
curb.
On the racetrack at all. Yeah, but that was kind of my intention of that pass. I was like, all right, it wasn't like any sort of, oh, I'm gonna get payback for Trevor. I was just frustrated, and I'm I like leading a group of carts, and so I wanted to get to third immediately. And when I saw my chance, I took it. And I went on the inside, braked really late because I wanted to snatch the corner from you, because I knew if I can get to the apex before you, by rules, it's a fair move. And so, but I might have opened the wheel a little bit more than I should have. And then from there, I think you went for a move on me back, like up the hill the next lap, and we just raced for the next 10 laps. And I was frustrated because I'd look back a lot and I'd see that there's people catching us, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I stopped racing I stopped racing you. I'm like, if you're gonna pass me, you're gonna pass me, because I didn't want to make it a battle for.
Oh, so you did let me pass you on the inside on that one corner.
I didn't let you by, but I didn't want to fight it.
Like, so okay. Because I mentioned in that video, like we were coming out of that top hill, or sorry, whatever, going back downhill, going back into the kidney bean section of it, and I thought you had just like went wide, and I went to your inside, and I'm like, did he like not turn for the corner? Did he want me to pass him? Was he trying to set me up?
It was kind of a bit of both. I was like, although I like leading a group, I could tell it was one of those races where probably if I led into the last lap, I wouldn't have come out third, and so I had the mindset of, if the door's open and he goes for it, I'm not going to fight it at all. And and it worked out for me. I mean, I was third up until the last corner, and then
Yeah.
kind of not even from anybody that I didn't actually know, because I hadn't looked back in a few laps. I didn't know that it was a 7 kart train. I thought it was just you and I. And then all of a sudden I see Stommer and Charlie, and I think Jordan Missick was in that fight. I'm like, where did these guys come from?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to the last corner. I didn't block, because I'm like, oh, I'm third. Nope, came out of the corner 7th.
What a race. I mean, and the crazy thing, I mean, I got a lot of thoughts on that. First off, I agree with everything you said, like 100%. And it's, I cannot imagine, like, I forgot completely. Like, so I did force the issue early on, 3 wide for the position early on before,
Yeah.
early in the race. And then I forced the issue again with Trevor going 3 wide again. So, I mean, from your perspective, man, I was pretty aggressive myself. Like, originally, I get off the track from that race, and I'm like, I got screwed over, without really realizing just how aggressive I was myself. And so it's interesting to hear that perspective and to totally understand it, and to totally agree with everything that you said. And your analysis of it is pretty spot on. I mean, that race was crazy. And like, I originally got off the track and thought that pass in turn 1 was just complete, and I don't even know how to say it without cursing, but like, I thought it was just like dumb. I thought I was like, well, I just got screwed over there. Like, that was the most stupidest thing I've ever experienced in my life. And then I make the analysis video, and I'm like, well, dang, like, that was really smart of him. Like, he did everything. Like, that was such a great move. Like, honestly, like, it was a golden move, golden pass, got to the inside. Everything was legal, like you said.
No,
you
had the golden footage, because when in your analysis video you stopped it, and you can see that my nose is at the apex ahead, which technically in the rules means
that's your corner.
I can dictate where you go. Doesn't mean that I should push you off as much as I maybe did, but I dictated where you went, and you went. You never actually did. You go on the dirt? I don't remember. I think you were just fully
I didn't
on the curb.
I didn't, because the thing is like, and that's the other treacherous thing about that corner, and kind of why I originally thought it was a little aggressive, is because, like, I think the practice day that we were there, it rained. And so off that curb, it was nothing. It was not dirt. It was a freaking mud pile.
Yeah.
So I knew that if I dropped a tire coming off that curb, that I was going to get sucked into it, and I was going to have a filthy cart when I came out of it. But no, when you ran me out at the exit of the corner, I was just 4 wheels on the curb, and like, you gave me like the perfect amount of room. And the thing is it was all 100% legal. Just the problem is like, we talk about your background in racing before you come to Ignite. You got all this national karting experience, and that level, and like I talked about this in the analysis video, but that level of karting that you've done, what you can and cannot do, and being on that limit of the rules, if you want to say it like that. And I have got only kartplex experience, and here everyone's family friendly, fun, like the competition level and the amount of pushing that you would do against the rule book isn't that much. So I think it was just kind of a clashing of my lack of national experience versus you being very kind of smart. And to be honest, even if hypothetically speaking, if that move wasn't the cleanest of moves, I mean, like I said in the video, you just watched me put Trevor off the track. You just watched me force you 3 wide. You were getting frustrated. I was getting frustrated. We were both not really concentrating at the goal in hand. I mean, it was just a mix up of just a bunch of different emotions and just a lot of bad decisions.
I want to clear up what I said. Like, it was never a move of I'm getting payback for Trevor. It was a move of
yeah.
I wanted to lead the group. I wanted to be in front. I feel really comfortable leading a group of karts. And I was also maybe a little frustrated with everything that had gone on. I'm watching the 2 leaders pull away. We're not.
And you knew that you had a chance at a win too, and you're watching these guys pull away.
Yeah, I mean, I knew at that point it was over. It was like 3-4 second gap, and those 2 were gonna push for the next 10 laps, because they knew what it took to win a track like Autobahn, where it's a really fast track, and there's only like 3 corners that are technical enough to pass. And we chose to go 3 wide in the 3 corners that you can't really go 3 wide in, and that was the race over right there in 1 lap. So from there, I think it was a whole combination of I was a little frustrated, and I also wanted to get to the front, because as a driver, I'm like, I can catch these guys. You still tell yourself you can win this race even though you're 4 seconds behind. And then I passed you, and then you passed me right back, And I'm like, okay, well, this is what this whole race is going to be like. So I just made sure that I finished third, which didn't even happen.
Right.
But
And then going back, if you know the story, if you've seen the vlog or anything, after all of that happens, it doesn't even matter for me because I lost my neck brace on the warm-up lap and then just got disqualified. So I completely just lost out on anything that I was fighting for in that moment. Which just I think that's like the cherry on top of the whole story. But in the kind of one more little thing that I have to say about Autobahn, maybe two things real quick, kind of going before the race and after the race. Before the race, we had the first race of the weekend, and I was doing really well in that first race. I was like working with Spike and working with Evan, and we were pushing, unlike what I was doing with you. And we worked together, and I like had a potential third place finish. And then just chaos at the top of the hill happened on the last lap, and I piled into it, and I think I finished like 7th or 8th. So I was already like frustrated going into it.
I forgot about that because I benefited from that. I gained like 4 spots in that last lap. I forgot about that.
It was like Ken Williams and I think maybe Mick Gabriel got into it because I came off and like Ken Williams, man, what a cool dude. He's obviously works at Margay, races. He's really smooth behind the wheel. I give him a tremendous amount of credit.
Fast,
I've never seen him angry. He's like the chillest dude. And he's coming off the track and he like throws his neck brace down. He's like mumbling to himself. And I'm like, what kind of demons got in Ken Williams? Like, I've never seen it. But I think I piled into Ken. And like, it was so unfortunate because like, if I would have just hugged that inside curbing at the top of the hill, like you always think like stuff like that happens. You always think what could I have done differently? And it's like in the moment, it all happened too fast.
Yeah, I used to do that all the time. I'd get off the track and be like, I could have done this and I could have won. But you can do that with anything in life. And it's like hindsight 2020. I mean, of course, you know how many races I could have won and lost if I would have done something else? It's too many to count. So you just have to there's split-second decisions that are made on the racetrack, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong.
Yeah, and that's like, I think we kind of touched on a little bit, like just the mental aspect of racing. Like we're making split-second decisions. Every split second. Like you're determining, like, okay, the guy in front of me, do I push him? Do I pass him? And you're analyzing your own line, like how you're driving. You gotta look behind you, like who's catching me. Like you're analyzing all of this information and you're making all these little decisions, and everyone's got the same goal. Everyone's going for that same piece of real estate, and everyone wants to win.
I think another thing about Autobahn was like, because it was kind of funny. I remember I was kind of chuckling a little bit seeing your reaction to everything that happened at Autobahn, because I think everything started at the like second or third lap up the hill. I kind of gave you a little tap, and the next lap, McGabriel did the same exact move. And so I think that was kind of like the start of, okay, this is not going to be there's going to be some rubbing of the bumpers. And I mean, I don't like to race that way, but I kind of had to match the energy of some of the drivers on the grid. And so that's why
totally understandable. Okay,
I got to maybe use the exit of the track to my advantage and do all this. And that's why I was hoping that Spike was going to work with me at the beginning, but then he passed me, and then Mick passed me. And then the next lap, I think you were frustrated with me, and you gave me a little bit of a tap. And then that's what
I tried, and I didn't really. I wasn't very successful with it, but I tried.
Yeah, you went for the move down the hill, and that's like, oh. And then Trevor got underneath both of us, which was just opportunist move. He's just he's
really smart driving by him.
I would have done the same thing Trevor did. I was just really frustrated. I was like, and I was on the outside of it all, so I was like, oh, I think I came out of that. I came out of that fifth. So
yeah. I'll end the discussion with the fact that I was so frustrated with you, that I had to cut what I said as my like little post-race talk in my vlog. I had to cut it out. Like I couldn't even like go through it and edit it. And I can sit here confidently, 2 years removed from it, and I look at the situation completely differently. And like I told you before we started recording, in watching everything that you've done in the past and everything you've done since, like I just respect you so much, and all of that is behind me. And I honestly just 100% look forward to the next time that I can share a racetrack with you, because like the thing is, I don't know. I mean, we've shared the track a couple times, and I've always I can't let that one bad thing spoil a bunch of good memories, a bunch of good battles, a good battle for the championship. So
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it was a sour thing in the moment, but then obviously when you look back in it, you kind of, I think you and I both with that video kind of like we both looked at it and said, none of us did anything wrong. It was just bending the rules, and just, I think the respect grew in that video. And then obviously when you and I raced again in Charlotte, it was very clean, very good. I mean, because we're not dirty drivers, and nothing we did there was dirty. We just, like you said, I think it was our first time really racing together, and so kind of like my mindset of racing on the national level is like that's the way these guys race. I mean, you go to like a Rock or a Scusa event, and you go, like, chances are you go on side by side, one guy's gonna have to give, and usually it's the guy on the outside. That's kind of the way these guys race, and that's how the rules work. So that was my mindset going into it.
Yeah, it was such a good learning thing, I think, for both of us.
Yeah.
And we can go back and realize that and learn from the mistakes, and it makes us both better drivers. And let me recommend this, because I know that there's a lot of racers out there that's going to listen to this. What we have just done right now is something that I would just recommend doing, because like if you have an incident with somebody, like sure, if you try talking to them after the race, you're going to be arguing. Hopefully you don't throw hands, but that may end up where you would end up going after something heated. But let it sit, and then talk to them. Like I think, like, especially like how I always talk about Gateway being family and everyone's friends and family, but something like that, like at Autobahn, where we're both just frustrated, we both just got into some bad incidences. It's cool to clear the air, understand each person's perspective, and just kind of get an understanding, like, okay, we'll try our best to not do that again. And you got to be able to go back out there and race wheel to wheel with that guy again and have that trust and respect. I recommend that most people, this is another good tip for you to kind of take away into your own racing careers is, don't let something that petty like bother you or like get in your mind, because then you won't be able to focus on more important things. So it's really good to kind of clear the air with the other drivers.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
We get out of Autobahn and we have the season finale at Gateway, and we're really tight in points after Autobahn, and we I don't really specifically remember how Gateway went for me. I know the last race I ended up getting a podium finish. I finished third, or maybe it was second. It was second, because I passed Trevor at the white flag to get a second place.
You passed him like over the curb, I think, or something. It was crazy.
Yeah. We it was like backwards extended track, and I like got to his inside down the back straightaway going to the white flag, and I just sent it through extended 3. And like you said, like the Hoosier R80 tires, there's not a lot of grip on them, so I'm just like full lock to the right. But it's like, we're in a tight point battle between me and you, so every position is gonna matter. And we ended up, at the end of it, I get out of the cart, and I'm doing my little post race talk, and you walk behind me from the scales, and we kind of look at each other, and we both kind of like shrug at each other, like, I guess we'll see. We don't really know. So what do you remember about that final round at Gateway?
I had no idea, because I was still new to this Ignite Challenge series. I remember looking at the points before the weekend and trying to figure out how they exactly work, and where I wanted to know where I could finish and where you need to finish. And I had my goals before the weekend, of course. I mean, besides trying to win the race, but I remember the first race of that weekend. It was actually going really well. I think I had just passed you, and I spun. It was through like the quick chicane, and I don't know what happened. I still don't know what happened. It was the weirdest thing, because I did the same thing I did all weekend, and I think I just got too much curb, because those curbs are not really meant to be hit, but everybody hit them, and I got too much curb. I just looped it, and I finished like 5 spots behind you. And I came in. I told my dad, I'm like, I might have just lost championship off of that. And so we go into the second race of the weekend, and you put it on the pole, and I qualified 10th.
Yeah,
and
I
was like,
yeah, I did.
and I qualified 10th, and that was the moment where I was like, I think this might have just gotten away from me. And from there, at that point, I had no idea where I had to finish. I had no idea what the gap was, and we didn't know for 3 weeks what the gap was. All I knew is I'm going to pass everybody like a pass. And I go from 10th. I had to really, really, really good race. I finished fifth. I actually almost caught up to you guys. I remember that because I was frustrated. I need like 2 more laps, and I would not frustrated. I was just like, the cart was actually really, really
What
good.
if? Yeah.
And I was like, I could see you guys. I saw the pass. I was like 2 laps away from maybe catching you, but I finished fifth and you finished second, and I'm like, I think I did some damage control there, just limited, what could have happened, and
Mhm.
I felt good about the race. I didn't feel good about the championship. I really thought you had it.
Well, you know what when I look back at the points and I'm like, like it wasn't like a dang you Alexander for being so consistent. It was dang me for not having my neck brace, because I think it's simply if I had my neck brace on at the end of that Autobahn round. I mean, it was like 50, it was like 23 points maybe. I would have had those points had I had my neck brace on, because I had finished fifth in that race and then I got disqualified. So really, I don't have anybody to blame but myself, to be honest, when I look
Yeah.
back at that challenge championship, because the neck brace would have been enough points to be able to get the championship.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it both ways. I mean, you can look at it as, if I show up to Whiteland, I'd have races to drop, because
Oh,
I would have
yeah.
loved to drop my first Gateway and Autobahn, but I couldn't. So those races stuck with me. So it's like you can look at it both ways. Where maybe at Whiteland, who knows? Maybe at Whiteland I have 2 DNFs, but that's why like
Yeah, you definitely came in with the disadvantage of not having the drops, that's for sure.
yeah, I mean, so that's why that first Gateway I think I finished like ninth, and then I had a seventh at Autobahn. That really, I think I podiumed at every race that I. Other than that, that was really
Mm-hmm.
what did it for me. But it was also funny because I remember Greg Dingus said it at like the podium ceremony. He said, I think this is like the first time somebody's won a championship without winning a single race in the series. I just finished second and third a lot.
Yeah, I mean that comes down to, I had Evan Stommer on the show, and we were talking about, it doesn't really necessarily matter if you can run one fast lap, but if you're consistent, consistency is gonna win you, and maybe not necessarily winning races, but if you can just be consistently onto the podium, and for like in my example, being the runner up in the series, I won at Whiteland, and then I got 2 other second place finishes. Everything else was just not good. So your consistency really paid off when it mattered, especially being, like I mentioned, down on those drops.
So was that, because I know for me, that was my, like, for all those tracks in that series, my first time going to them. Was it the same? Was it the same for you besides Gateway?
Yeah, so all the times that I raced with you in Challenge those were my first times at those tracks. Being Whiteland and Midstate and TNT. Those were all my first times there. And same thing with Autobahn too. I did some practice laps at Autobahn, but I never actually raced. So
Yeah. So I mean, there's something to be said about like the top 2 guys in the championship just haven't been. I hadn't been to any of those tracks, so it was. I took the practice day as a practice day, but I think
mhm.
it helps on the national level. At least I'm pretty good at picking up a track in a session or two. But it was. I mean, it was cool. It was cool. But it was. I still remember that weekend because the next 2 weeks I was looking at the points, refreshing it, like trying to see when they're posting.
Right.
I couldn't believe
I,
actually that I won by 30. I thought it was like a 5 points situation. I was thinking like,
yeah, I think. I mean, I think without drops, it was really tight, but then drops came in, and it was more substantial for sure. Because
yeah, without drops, I mean, you would have wanted, of course, because I had 2 zeros
oh yeah,
for the
mm-hmm.
no show. But
Yeah, once I got the bad ones out of the way and it evened up, it was really close. And I mean, it was just so cool I think about like just how much fun that was. I mean, look back at in the moment it was very stressful, but that final round at Gateway and just that intense points battle. I mean, that's really good thing for Margate to have. You talk about back to what we were talking about, spec program and equalized equipment, and to have the points that close, and the races always being that close, and it's just such a really cool thing. To transition though, real quick, I want to talk about your 2021 Ignite Challenge series, because you ended up going back to back. So how did the 2021 season go? I didn't even know. I wasn't even there for it. So you'll be filling me in on some things that I missed out on.
it went well. I mean, I did what I didn't do in this 2020 season, and I started off the season with a win. So I mean, automatically I went into that thinking like, okay, this can be a good season again, and I win the first round at Gateway, second race at Gateway. It goes well. I mean, I might have been the fastest guy all weekend, but I kind of half spun it, going for a move, locked him up, because with the R80s, if you don't get that braking right, you can just lock up the
Oh
rears a
yeah.
little bit. So I half spun it there, but I finished fifth. We go to, I believe it was Cincinnati was the next race. I finished third in one of them. I finished third in both of them, but I had a pushback penalty that was applied after the race, and I finished seventh. I think that really started the transition to Margay brought in the pushback bumpers for the 2021 season to kind of eliminate any of the dirty driving that may or may not occur. But it was originally implemented as if we deem it, if they deemed it, aggressive, it's a penalty. But if it was just like somebody braked in front of you hit them, you know what, we're gonna let it slide. And in my situation at Cincinnati, which actually going back to Gateway, the one that I won, my clamp fell off. So nothing to do with me hitting somebody. My clamp just fell off. And so they were like, you know what, it had nothing to do with him being dirty. And it caused a little bit of, controversy because it's like, well, then what's the rule? What's the rule? Same with Cincinnati. On the warm-up lap, I hit the guy in front of me. And they deemed it, just that no harm, no foul, it's a warm-up lap. And I came in the pits and I finished third. And then we all talked about it, and it was like, well, that's kind of a loophole now, because if you just do it on the warm-up lap, you can hit the guy in front of you and just smash him off the racetrack. Not that none of us would do that, but that's kind of a loophole. And so I talked to the official and I said, hey, like I agree with any decision you guys make, and just I agree to make it black and white from now on. And so they gave the penalty for it, and then from then on, it was a black and white rule. You come in with a pushback, you're guilty until proven innocent. And that's how, if you're gonna run a pushback bumper on a series, that's how it should be. It shouldn't. Mm-hmm. It should be you have a pushback. If you have GoPro, if you have any proof of it being, of you being innocent, show us. If not, you're gonna get the 2-place, 4-place penalty that it is. From there, I felt pretty confident about my chances at the championship. And then we go to Audubon, and I had a really good race with Riley Scott, who ended up being like my championship rival the whole season. He actually ended up winning both races. The first race was incredible. He and I swapped the lead for the entire race. I think we crossed the line. I think I finished like 100th of a second behind him. Great race. Second race, he had the pace. I mean, I didn't adjust for the track congestions. It was cooled down a little bit. It favored him. So I had a second place again. We go to, I believe, Mid-State, which is kind of like Riley's, one of his home tracks. There's a bunch of hometown kids that go to that race. Not kids, should I say, but like adults, kids, both. And I had an okay weekend. I was about a 10th off the entire weekend, and just the draft kind of helped me a bit, stayed a lot, but I think I finished 5th and 6th, just there. I mean, I could see the leader in front of me. Like, I think I finished maybe less than a second behind the leader. I could watch the race. I couldn't get there. It's a really hard track to pass on. If anybody's ever been to Mid-State who's listening, mm-hmm. Can't pass there besides on the straightaway. And the last race of the season, the TNT, which I hadn't been on the track since you and I last raced in 2020. So it was newly paved, which is it's a great track to go to. I was quick. I was really quick. I showed up there. I was in the pole, and I believe I led 80% of that race. And I still, to this day, don't know what happened, but I have an idea what happened. So I think with 2 to go, I spun it. From leading the race, I spun. And this is the race that really, if I would have won this race, would have sealed the championship. Because Riley, I think, was third. He was like kind of my rival going to the race. And I looped it. I touched the sand, and I think I looped it. I don't think I got touched, but it was the quickest spin of my entire life, which is why I don't know what happened right. Exactly. But I believe I just
a little foggy.
But I looped it, and so that really blew the championship wide open. I was going to the last race. A little, I thought I lost it. Again, another situation where I thought I lost championship. And because Riley finished second and I finished, last. So that was not my drop. That was one of my drop races now. Originally, it was going to be my 7th and my 5th place. Now my drop is this one. And then they then do a reverse race, which is a track that I'd never driven the reverse track. So I had that one practice to kind of learn it. And I had an okay race. I mean, I was really, really quick in the feature race, but I didn't qualify very well. Luckily for me, though, I finished a few positions ahead of Riley, so it helped my cause a little bit. But again, didn't know the points at all. I actually thought he was going to win it. I ended up winning it by, I think it was like 20, 30 points, just like you and I had.
I got it up here right now, 23 points.
Yeah, so I mean, it was barely anything, yeah. Plus, if I would have finished 2 positions different over the course of a season, I would have lost. So,
right.
That again shows how close it was. And I think actually Trevor had a chance to win the championship as well. I believe mathematically, I think if Riley and I had a bad race, he would have won it. Like it shows how good of a championship the Ignite Series is. I mean, you have a 5-race, a 5-race track, 10-race season, and you can go to the last race with 3 guys who win the championship.
Yeah, I mean it says a lot about the series, like we've talked about. It also says a lot about you too. I mean, there's a lot of drivers that you can see, like especially we think of like Gateway Ignite Series stuff, like back when Stammer was racing, like he would like win every single race and walk away with championships in a given season. But for you to actually be like properly challenged and be able to stay cool under those conditions, I mean, you spin out in that first race at TNT, and then you look at, oh God, like instead of freaking out and really just choking it all away, you kind of get yourself back up to normal. You put your focus forward, and you go out there and you shine when it matters the most. And so I think that says a lot about you as a driver too.
Yeah, thank you. No, I was told by a lot of people, like after the fact, like I handled it really well, because a lot of guys come in, they spin, they throw their helmet on the ground and they get upset. I came in and I was like, well, at that point I didn't know what happened, so I came in and I'm like, I don't know what happened, but there's nothing I can do about it, because that's kind of like that's always my mindset in racing. It's like if something bad happens, there's nothing you can do about it. So you can get frustrated all you want and destroy your equipment, but nothing you can do about it. I mean, it's not going to change the result. So whether I spun, whether I got hit, whether anything, there's what am I going to do about it? So my goal at that point was to do the best that I can in the reverse grid race, and I had a blast in that race. I passed a lot of carts, really had a chance of the win, probably if I qualified a little better, but just I think that also helped my cause in the championship, not going to that last race frustrated for no reason. I mean,
right.
I lost what was going to be either a win or a second, because it was me and a local guy there racing for the win, and probably that would have sealed it. If I would have won the race, I would have gone to the last race I won the championship. Like no pressure on this race, because I think that would have sealed it. But me finishing poorly because of that really made that last race important, but more important than what it would have been. But again, I go into every race with the same level head, just do the best that I can, because you control your own destiny. So like you can't control what, for example, like my rival in that championship with Riley, you can't control what happens. So if he wins the race, but you did your best, it's like, you know what, you did your best. I mean, that's what happens. So my goal in that race was to just go out there and try to win the race. I mean, that's all you could do.
For those other racers out there listening, I mean, take notes. I mean, this is all really like useful stuff to try to practice on your own. I mean, you've been through a lot of stuff, and just your experience really shines through, especially in a spec series like this. So I kind of want to move from out of the go-kart, and I want to talk about some of your carts to cars transitional stuff. Two things that really stick out in my mind is you've gone and you've done like a Lucas Oil racing school. I believe you had a race series, or you competed in the series there as well. And you've most recently did the Mazda Shootout, where all these karters get invited and they basically all battle it out for a scholarship to go MX5 racing. Talk about some of those transitions and what it was like to try to take your skills that you learned in the go-kart and then use it on this full-size vehicle. I mean, talk about that transitional period.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a dream come true, just to be in any form of racing, but being in a race car, it's an incredible experience. I still remember it was actually 2018, within my first year of racing. For my birthday, I went to the basic training Lucas Oil School, and I fell in love with the car, of course. And yeah, from there, I did the advanced lapping the following month, I believe. And then I didn't really do much Lucas Oil for that year. I did the Racing for Cancer event at Laguna Seca, which is a really cool event because Hunter Ray and Hinchcliffe were there, and you got to not race, but like drive alongside them. And it was an incredible experience to be at. Also went to a really, really, really good foundation, went to a good cause. But I didn't do much open wheel stuff after that. And then I went to the last round of the race series in 2019 at Sebring, and there was a championship battle going on. But I kind of just hopped in, just I wanted to get an experience for open wheel racing, and I was able to win in my first ever race with guys like Prescott Campbell, who's now in the USF 2000 series, and really, really, really good racing, clean, hard racing. And from there, I think I finished first a second in race 2, and then race 3 I had a DNF, battling for the lead. No, not an incident at all, just mechanical thing. It was a phenomenal transition. I was able to I got acclimated really, really quickly in the car. And like you said, I mean, like I said earlier, it's a dream come true just to be in any form of car racing.
Oh yeah.
Lucas Oil, like I said earlier, phenomenal program. In terms of a school, I like the Skip Barber side. I've never done Skip Barber side. I would love to give it a try. Skip Barber and Lucas Oil, they're both, to me, great schools to be a part of.
I'm pretty familiar with the Lucas Oil program. Obviously, me being Mr. Skip Barber over here, I can't really promote it. The thing is there's a lot of karters out there that are very confused. Like when they want to go to the next step, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. And going to a racing school and just really getting your feet wet in it, I mean, not only do you get the proper licensing to then eventually move on to something, but you learn a lot. And even the stuff that you learn, like probably the stuff that you learned at Lucas Oil, I know the stuff that I learned at Skip Barber, I mean, it all transferred over to karting too. There's a lot of things that I learned that I was able to kind of take away from the big cars to go back to go-karting with, for sure. What about, so we got this Mazda thing too. I mean, you just recently did this. We have a bunch of these karters, some of the best karters in the country, all get invited, or at least some of them. I believe it was like 10 of these karters get invited to go do this Mazda Shootout, where you've got this MX-5 scholarship on the line. I'm sure that was first off a really cool thing to be nominated for to begin with, but to even compete in and take away stuff from. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, what an incredible experience. Yeah, at first they nominate, I believe it was 22 drivers to just be a part of it, and then from there you submit a video, and then they pick 10 people. They pick 9 drivers to be a part of the Spec MX-5 Shootout at Sebring in the cars, and they really get to see how you are. And so I was lucky enough to be one of the 9, and I mean, just what an experience. It's of course to be nominated. I mean, all those guys there are some of the best karting drivers in the entire world, or in the country, should I say, maybe even the world. And it's not only, I mean, being fast is obviously, if you're not fast, then, but being fast was a component of being selected, but they really want to see the off track, because they're picking guys who they want to see in their Mazda Motorsports program in the years to come. And they want to pick a guy who's going to be able to promote them in commercials and promote them on TV as well. Not only being fast, but they want you to be able to just speak well and introduce yourself to others. It creates opportunities for Mazda as well. If you can bring in sponsors because of how well you speak and how well you communicate with others, it's just great for everyone. And so it was an eye-opening experience to see how everything works. And I mean, I made so many great connections. Everybody had a great time. And I mean, although I didn't get selected, it was the best experience that I've ever had in racing. And to me, I know I said Lucas Oil is a great school to go to if you're going the open wheel side of things, but to me, everyone, their first step out of karts should be Miatas, whether it's Spec Miata, MX-5 Challenge, it should be in a Miata. I think they're not the quickest thing in the straight lines. Everybody's like, oh, they're not quick in a straight line. But everyone that I've ever talked to who's ever hopped in a car has said it's the most fun they've ever had. And anywhere you go, any racetrack you go to, there's a Spec Miata, it's 50 cars. And usually some of the best guys in the country race them because it's just the best form of racing. It's stick shift, which is always really, really important to know how to do. The cars handle phenomenal. I mean, I've done some champ car races, which is just, you kind of just bring a car to the racetrack and you race. And I've done it twice in a Miata now. And I mean, there's guys out there in, Corvettes and Porsches and anything they bring to the track. And the Miata, I mean, it gives them a run for their money in the corners. In the straight line, not so much. But in the corners, that thing is the best handling car you're going to drive in terms of sports car style things. It is so much fun. It's a big go-kart. I mean, it really feels like a big go-kart. If you want to go from karts to cars, it's the first step because it really isn't much of a transition at all to me. I think the car is, like I said, a big go-kart. And for me, being a Briggs driver, it was the perfect transition because Briggs, not a very good motor, really, really just roll onto the throttle, carry the speed, momentum racing. That's what Miata stuff is, as well as draft is really important. It's the best first step to me. But like I said, the Shootout, great opportunity, and I made a lot of connections, and I really look forward to working with Mazda in the future.
I've really enjoyed watching. I mean, you can go and watch these MX-5 races. I mean, it's all live streamed. I mean, beyond just the experience of it and being able to go do it, they put on some awesome races as well. I mean, you've got like their season opener at Daytona, man. I mean, they're like 3, 4, 5 wide, and just talk about like equalized competition and being able to learn how to drive a car. Fairly inexpensive too, as far as you talk about car racing. They've definitely got a good program on. There's a reason that the MX-5 has been a racing car for as long as it has and as successful as it's been. I got one last thing that I want to ask you real quick before we end the show. What you got going on for next year, man? I know that 2022 is coming up. Racing season's right around the corner. You got any big plans coming up for 2022?
I hope to be running in the Spec MX-5 Challenge Series coming up. I hope to run the full season there, and maybe some Lucas Oil race events going on. Not a lot of karting. I think I'm making the transition to cars now. There's not a lot more to do in karting for me. Otherwise, I'll just be kind of running in place. So I think
right.
My parents and I, we decided to take this year and we're gonna fully go for it. I mean, we're gonna try to make this racing thing work, make it a reality. So yeah, we're gonna do a lot with Mazda, because again, I think it's just Mazda does such a good job especially with their grassroots program. They really are just great. They promote the Spec Miata side of things, Spec MX-5 Challenge Series, MX-5 Cup. I mean, all of it. They're the best. So that's why I'm running with them, running the series, should I say, the Spec MX-5 Challenge Series. And yeah, that's kind of what I got going on so far, and maybe some other things, but mainly Mazda, Miatas, and some Lucas Oil.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
Like I said, I think I really like you said it yourself, and I'm glad you said it, so I didn't have to assume this. But like you've kind of done a lot of what you can do in karting, and there's really not many unchecked boxes for you, if you will. I think you've kind of proved yourself at that level of karting, and I really thought that I think it's time for you to get that opportunity, find that chance. I know it's very difficult. And it's really awesome to see that. So congratulations to you on that. And like I've said, I've tons of respect for you, Alexander. It's really cool to see how you've become just your progress,
Yeah, thank you.
and to be able to see you move on. So here at the end of the show, do you have anything else you want to add? Anybody you want to thank? And where can we find you on the social medias to keep up with your racing journey?
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, I want to thank my parents, of course, for everything they've done for me. I mean, my mom and dad and Rick, they do everything they can to make this racing thing a reality. Gary Barron, he funds me. He's the best. He's really helped me. I mean, without him, I would not have done any of the racing that I've done over the past 4 years. So he's the best. And I mean, obviously my friends that support me, and family that supports me, Margay, they're obviously like guys like you. I mean, it's all family, and they all support me, and they all, you have me on this show. It's a great opportunity just to promote myself, and I love being on it. Socials, you can find me on Instagram at Alexander Searle. It's just my name, and then obviously on Facebook, Alexander Searle. And yeah, that's where you can find me on socials.
Dude, I appreciate this, and we'll end it on this. Our goal at the start of the show was that at the end we could say we're friends, and I would say confidently on my end, Alexander, I'd call you a good friend of mine now.
Yep, me too. We're good friends.
So we've cleared the air here on the show. We're friends, and like I said, I'll say it one more time. I've said this so many times with you on the call, but I respect you as much as I can, man. You're just such a cool dude. I loved hearing your story, stuff that I didn't even know. So I was able to take away a lot from that. And I wish you the best of luck in 2022.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you. And once again, thanks to all of you guys for tuning into the show. I like to end the show with a little bit of a plug myself. This show is not funded. We don't have sponsors on it. And there is that little bit of the fee to keep the lights on, if you will, to kind of get the show out there on the podcast airwaves. So I invite you guys to check out the ATA Network store at shopatanetwork.com. Shirts, hoodies, all that fun stuff. I'll let you kind of see it for yourself, if you will. I love it. I honestly do. I wouldn't be wearing it all the time in my videos if I didn't honestly like it. and really, really comfy stuff. So check that out, shopatanetwork.com. All the links to my socials, all the links to things that we discussed, all of Alexander's social media links will be in the link dump, bobbykrug.com/podcast. So you can feel free to search it on your own or go there. We'll have links to everything. So just want to thank all you guys for tuning in, all you guys for your support on the return of the podcast. I'm glad to be back behind the microphone, glad to talk to people like Alexander. I mean, to be fair, I don't know if I'd pick up the phone and necessarily just call Alexander and be like, hey, what's up? And then he'd be like, why are you calling me, man? But to be able to have the platform and the ability to kind of connect with people through the media that I do, it's just been super cool. And without you guys tuning in and listening to it, it wouldn't be possible. So thanks to all you guys for making this show possible. And until next time, I will see you guys on the next episode of the ATA Network podcast.